Then we can go.
Who was on it, Sandy?
Mr. Clark.
Chairman Rourke.
Here.
Council Mercia.
Here.
Council Noon.
Here.
3 present.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. We're here tonight. It's a neighborhood subcommittee, 5 o'clock on August 3rd, 2021. The motion, order of business is discussion on sanitation, infestation issues in Pawtuckaville. This started from a couple of residents that had reached out to me over about 10 days ago, brought to the attention of inspections with Eric Slago, Deputy Director of DPD, and Dave Fuller, Building Inspector for the City of Lowell. Some things have been emailed and some video and pictures and things like that. And we're here tonight hopefully to come up with some solutions for what's going on over there. Along with Councilor Noon, Councilor Mercia, and Mr. Clerk, we're ready to go. So, Mr. Slago, go ahead.
Sure. I want to make sure that we hear from the neighbors, but I also wanted to speak to the subcommittee and just kind of address the things that Councilor Rourke had mentioned, which is it hasn't just been this year. Over the last couple of years, we've had what I would consider to be an increase in complaints from the Pawtuckaville area and other sections of Lowell about infestation, specifically of rats, in the residential neighborhoods that hadn't had that sort of infestation in the past. I think Dave Fuller has a record of being out looking in these neighborhoods in Pawtuckaville last year as well. At the time, we had inspectors out last year. We've had inspectors out this year as well. In an attempt to try and pinpoint if there was a cause, a location that we could take enforcement action against, both Commissioner Fuller and Sean Machado, who's the senior health inspector, were in the neighborhoods where the complaints were being received, and there doesn't appear to be any kind of locus point for enforcement. So that's the challenge that we have as a enforcement branch, is if we can't find a person that's responsible, we enforce against the property owners where the infestation are. And so that's not, we wouldn't take, if somebody calls in a complaint about rats being on their property, we're not going to enforce against them. They're obviously calling in because they're looking for some sort of larger assistance. But we're looking around to see if we could determine the source of the problem. I think there are a few things that have led to this uptick. Again, it's not just in Pawtuckaville, it's also in other neighborhoods in Lowell, and it's in other municipalities in the Commonwealth. This is not a Lowell problem, this is kind of a Massachusetts problem. Some of and so we've talked with other municipalities and talked to the state about trying to figure out what the causes might be. Some of the speculations of the causes are because of the pandemic and the shuttering of lots of different restaurants. The places where the rats would normally hang out and eat were not there. The restaurant dumpsters were not being utilized a lot during the pandemic, and even now there are still restaurants that are still shuttered, and that forced the rodents to look elsewhere for food, and so they were venturing into neighborhoods that maybe hadn't seen them before. I know that in some investigations there's indications that rats will migrate over a mile to look for a source of food. And so because the trash situation radically changed during the pandemic, people were staying at home, so businesses weren't generating trash, but houses were generating more trash because people were eating at home as opposed to eating out. They were, even if they were getting takeout, they were taking it out at home, and so that trash was being generated in residential trash locations as opposed to in commercial trash locations. So those are unfortunately things that we don't have any enforcement authority over. They're just changes in kind of the trash demographic of Lowell, and that has continued. So we're still working on enforcement. I know that Sean was out after Mr. O'Brien's issues that were raised, and he was looking at the locations in the immediate vicinity. There doesn't appear to be a locus that we could see as a cause for this. We believe it's just kind of a ripple effect of people leaving trash out. There being more trash for the roads to come to.
Thank you. We're also joined by DPD Director Christine McCall and Councilor Elliott as well. If we can, we'll just go to Mr. O'Brien now. I can mention what communication he had with me and then to the department. So, John?
Is the green light on?
Hello? Is it on? Is it
Yeah,
working? There you go. John O'Byrne, 57 Endicott Street. Basically, I've been working with Discount Pest Control for a little over a year, baiting at my house. Well, in the year's time, we've found, dead rats in the street. So we realized the baiting was working. And until 2 months ago, when I found an actual dead rat in my basement, I wasn't really too worried about it, but it more or less just pissed me off. Because in my neighborhood, we're not used to that kind of stuff. So I just kind of been keeping an eye out, looking around the neighborhood, noticing people maybe putting their trash out late, it not getting picked up, it staying there for another week, old trash, more trash than normal. Whether it's trash, I don't know if that's the main cause. I did send video that I received from a friend of rats actually coming right out of a house in the middle of the day. I took more pictures of that house, sent that in. I've heard the Jeanne d'Arc School, who has never had an issue with rats, had issues with rats this year. Guy guy from Discount Pest Control, who I've been talking with, he said he's been baiting the neighborhood for 2 years. A little further up on Endicott Street, more on the Dracut line, which is really only 100 yards up the street from where I live. Seems to have Dracut also has a problem up on that end. My sister, who owns the house behind me, which is the house I grew up in, we found the rats had eaten right through her garage. On the bottom, the sill was already rotted, so it was easy for them to eat through. It looks like it's old damage from the winter when they got in, and maybe was looking for a place, for the winter to be warm. I drove around this weekend knowing this meeting was coming up. I talked to probably 10 of my neighbors, all, which nobody really communicated to each other, all have baited and caught rats in their yards. So they're basically, I would say, in every yard in our neighborhood. Walking around the neighborhood, I actually walked the neighborhood with Rodney one day. I walked the neighborhood with Mr. Fuller one day also. Just kind of showing them things that we see. We had someone come out of their house saying how their shed got eaten through from the rats. It's just nothing that we've ever seen. I've lived there my whole life, so I know every nook and cranny of the neighborhood, and we've never seen this. I don't know what's causing it. I don't know if there's one dirty house in the neighborhood that's infested. I don't really know of any vacant houses. But to me, I think it's time that the landlords step up, and if they're not local landlords, then maybe have a way to have somebody that maintains the houses and goes and takes out the trash if it doesn't get taken out, or do something more with the tenants, and barrels being left on the street all week long. I mean, to me, it's not a good sign, So anything that can be done is appreciated. Like I said, I've been there my whole life, and we've never seen anything like this before. So appreciate the help.
Thank you. Eric?
No, I was just going to say very quickly, we appreciate Mr. Byrne letting us know so we can at least take a look. The one thing that I would suggest, and we've talked to folks about it, is if you do see trash being taken out late, if you see barrels being left out, to call DPW's Solid Waste and Recycling office and let them know so they can issue violations. I believe the number is 978-674-4309. I believe is the number for solid waste and recycling. And so that would be something we encourage everybody, not just in Pawtuckaville, everybody in the city to do. If you see that these trash is being left out, if you see a situation where there's a house that's a kind of a frequent flyer with trash, call our office at Development Services and we'll have an inspector out to take a look. That number's 978-674-4144. That comes to the Development Services office. And we'll have inspectors out there as soon as possible to try to address trash. We're also taking a couple of measures. It does appear that there may be a house that looks like it might be a problem in Dracut, close to this property line. I think Sean Machado thought it was a house in Lowell and was going to find them, and then realized it's a house across the line in Dracut. So we're going to ask to reach out to Dracut, and maybe they could take some enforcement action against that property. We know the health director in Dracut. He used to work in Lowell, so we'll ask Dave Willett if he can step up and do something across the property line. There's also the issue of kind of private waste haulers. As you know, the city waste management handles residential trash for the city, but over a certain size, multifamilies and commercial properties all have to hire their own waste hauler, and so we'll be kind of scrutinizing those private companies and making sure that they're not having dumpsters that are sitting over full for too long. And if anybody sees those, please call us and let us know so we can take some enforcement action against them. Those would be those are kind of the steps that we can take, and if there's a problem that somebody can point us to, we'll do our best to enforce against it and get some compliance.
All right, thank you. Marcia?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, John, is there any water near that area? Is there a waterway there someplace? Is it more prevalent lately than it has been in the past?
It's been going on for at least a year that I know of. I don't know, we don't have any flooding, we don't have any construction, there's no road work going on, that's all been done.
And I'm wondering about baiting and people that have animals like cats.
Well, they're enclosed baiting stations.
Oh,
So the only animals that could get in those are either mice, probably rats, maybe squirrels.
now you just called these rats animals, didn't you say that?
Yeah.
So
is that a
I
good thing?
believe they're animals too. We could not get any help from animal control to control this. They must have something bigger that we could catch a heck of a lot more. They're probably multiplying, and that's what scares me the most. I like to stop there.
To me, the worst thing about even a baiting station, you don't actually see them die. So they feed and they go off and they search for water because it makes them thirsty or whatever. And I think that's why they try to get in a house or somewhere where it's damp, a basement, something like that. But, some people might think a rat trap is inhumane. But to see them actually, because people are grossed out by it. To see
Yeah.
them dead is, to me, a good thing. But
Well, I'm not one for hurting animals, but a rat is a different animal
Yeah.
to me. And once they get it, if they would get in my house, I wouldn't care how inhumane it was. Just get it out of here somehow, I don't care.
I have an old foundation. My house is probably over 100 years old. So I'm down there mixing cement and patching holes as much as I can.
Yes.
Believe me, my
yes.
family doesn't, they're not happy either that I have
Yeah.
them in the house.
I sympathize with you. Yeah, I have gophers all over the place, but they don't bother me, but
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. We have a lot of rabbits, and everybody's worried about hurting the rabbits because they're
yeah,
so
yeah, they're
you know,
pretty.
cute little animals.
Yes. But anyway.
The other thing I was thinking about is, a lot of people that recycle their water and they have the little vestibules that they put their food in at the end of the day to compost. Do those attract rats? I'm wondering,
Of course,
because a lot of people do that now. So I don't know if that's, more people are growing gardens, more people are doing compost. Is that one of the things that can bring them in?
What would you like us to do? What do you think we should do?
Well, to me, what bothers me probably the most is open garbage, just having trash everywhere, and barrels not being picked up on time, or people not putting their barrels out on time, people not bringing in their barrels when they're done. To me, there's just a lot of trash, and I know there's a lot of students that are renting apartments, and the houses are getting filled with them, and students don't always get up in the morning and take the trash out on time. The truck goes by and the trash never gets put out. Then it waits a week. I see it every day, or every week. Something that I keep an eye on now. So I don't know. What do you do?
sympathize with you.
Unless a landlord would have a maintenance guy take care of his building and he comes every Sunday night and takes the barrels out. But now even the waste management company's having hard time getting drivers, and the trash doesn't even get picked up on time. So,
I'm sympathizing
no,
with you.
it's
I don't.
just, I don't know.
It's bad enough to see a mouse, but a rat, now that's frightening.
And after the rat comes something a little bigger.
Jeez,
They're only gonna grow.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it's okay. We deal with it right now, but hopefully we can make it better,
Is this a health issue? Is this a health issue, Mr. Slagle? A health issue?
I think it is.
I think it is, too.
We have a a responsibility to do everything we can to try and alleviate this for public health reasons. That's why infestations are a problem.
So do you think the city and the health department or anyone is gonna help here? Because I certainly would be crying for help if this were in my neighborhood or on my street.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I don't believe that the animal control officer, this falls within their jurisdiction, but I could certainly ask to see if they have any ideas about things that we can do. We can certainly provide residents with resources, be it, companies that they can call to do some proactive extermination. The issue that we have as an enforcement branch is when we get calls about infestations, we write up the property that has the rats. So if a rat comes into your house, we would have to write you up, and that's not going to help the neighbors that are calling for help, is writing them up, unless we have a locale. So if there are things that the city can do, like writing up people that are leaving out their trash, and there's trash being left out for a week, I think that's something that we should kind of do. And I'll talk to Chris Haley, who's the solid waste and recycling coordinator, and Christine Clancy, and make them aware that these locations are maybe need a little bit of some extra eyes to make sure that the trash situation doesn't get out of control, like being left out, especially as we get towards the end of this month and the students are back in town, making sure that the trash situation is monitored on a more regular basis. Something we can do, and we'll obviously have all of our inspectors that are in the area keep an eye on the private waste haulers and make sure that the dumpsters aren't there. Try to prevent the rats from having sources of food in the residential areas that are a problem. Other than that, I think I have my question is the same as yours, Counselor, which is what can we do?
No.
I can certainly, reach out to the Board of Health to see if they have any ideas.
Sure, that's right.
Or if the State Department of Health has any resources that either the city or the residents could avail themselves of to try and get health. So I'll send out an email as soon as I get back in my office to the Health Department and see if the Board of Health has any of those resources. I don't know if they do or not, but I can certainly ask.
Okay, thank you.
Council Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's good to have this discussion. I think the solution is to have more inspections, because I do think that we're chasing our tail with some of these landlords, and that's what it is. It's the absentee landlords. You can walk with Mr. O'Byrne. I've been forwarding requests for particular homes on Drake Street right next to that woman's house for years now. 4th Avenue, same thing. And I agree with you. Maybe as a result of Corona, there is more garbage, but it's at the homes of individuals, landlords, absentee landlords that are renting to students or otherwise. They're leaving their trash out. They're overfilling their barrels, and the rats are only going to go where there's food. And then they go to other, they start making their way into the neighborhood. I agree with Mr. O'Byrne, and he has contacted me, and it's unfortunate for years that there's a growing rat problem, not only here. We just got an email the other day from someone in South Lowell, right next to this one business that they're digging up. There's rats right next to Silreza now. So I agree, but in this particular instance, it's the growth of the university, it's the increase of student housing, and all the trash that they leave out. I've sent them to Mr. Fuller on University Ave. There were 3 houses in a row. There was a mound of trash that you just can't believe. Property owners don't live here. They live in Georgetown and then in the winter in Florida. So I think we need an inspector, particularly in the Pawtuckaville neighborhood. And if that means hiring somebody, as I've spoke to you about, I think we need to do it because students are coming back. They would prefer not to stay in the dorms because it's cheaper, but with that comes a whole host of problems, and I think this is a direct result, and we have to hold the landlords accountable. And I think we know who the frequent flyers are. Certainly these people in the neighborhood know where the big problems are. So I don't think it's simple, but I do think it's, if you're gonna let students live there, then, and there's a lot of homes in the Riverside, University, Drake-it, Farragut, White, Gershom Ave area that I really do think that there needs to be, as you say, the students are coming back, no better time to start, and if there's no food for them to eat, then the rats will go away, but they shouldn't have to deal with this in that neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess one suggestion could be is when school does get back in session or stop again, is there a way you could do a 3 or 4 week, is it just a, walk through the neighborhood, an informational thing, just to reinforce the rules of what it is? If you think that the reason for this happening, is, multiple houses, not just one central location of where it's happening. I did see the house that was, I guess, burnt down a few years ago in Drake-it, that, there was trash outside, it's probably trash inside, right? So hopefully Drake-it will, get in there and take a look at it as well. And so, I mean, if it's a possibility, I know how strained inspections is at this time, but if it's something that can be done again for a, 3 or 4 week period, just to hit it hard, to look to see what, if a central problem could be found of why this is happening. And the only thing I'll ask is that, motion was filed, 6, 8 months ago. And the reason why I know is because I'm the one that ended up filing it, was to have information on a multifamily dwelling that states who the owner is with contact information. I know that it was passed. Is there any update on how fast that, if Dan Rourke owns a 2 or 3 family, that my name, number, and email address is there for people to see, to contact and say, hey, look, get your stuff in order.
Right, and so I think that's a good point, and that's a helpful piece of information that we're rolling out to the landlords and telling them that that's now a requirement as the council passed it. The kind of earlier thing that you mentioned, we can certainly, and I think what I think we should do is probably work with Chris Haley to perhaps maybe have a joint walk with both him and his team, solid waste and recycling, and a health inspector and possibly a building inspector, to do a walk through the area and kind of try to identify potential problem properties that seem to be having those issues. We can also touch base with Chris and ask him if he has a list of landlords that had problems with the trash issues in the past, that have been written up over there for leaving their trash out or overfilling their barrels, and maybe ask him to do maybe a proactive kind of reminder to those landlords, hey, you were fined in the past for this, and the students are coming back now, so keep an eye on it because we're going to be keeping an eye on you. That sort of reach out, and we have already let the local inspectors in the area know that this is an issue to keep an eye on, but we'll certainly reiterate that to the inspectors in the area to double down on this issue to try and straighten it out.
Thank you. Mrs. Mapple, you want to say a couple words?
When the students do come back, shouldn't there be like some rules for them to follow? They're adults, but sometimes they're too busy with their work, schoolwork, whatever. But sanitary reasons, they don't care. They put things in the recycling that shouldn't be there, so they just get tagged and it stays there. And then there's some garages that just stay shut. Maybe if you inspect that area, you'll find those garages are full of trash. I walk my dog, I see things that hurt me, really. I've been there over 50 years. It's never been this way. My great-grandparents built the house. And as a child, I was in that neighborhood. Pawtucketville rolled up the sidewalk at 8. Very quiet, well-kept neighborhoods. It's so changed, and it's so sad. Because someone's just putting money in their pocket, going over and cutting the weeds that are up to your waist, and then leaves. Not really checking on the property. Not really. No problem with parties. We did have that at one time. That seemed to have eased up, but pretty much no students either, so. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
Councilor Noon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I share the resident frustrations. I also echoes Mr. Slago's comments as well. This is an issue, a concern throughout the city and maybe the Commonwealth. We notice that the population growth really create for plenty of grocery store and restaurants, and, which result in an abandonment of trash. You know, trash that sometimes not taken care of well enough. You know, rat very, very good and find their way through crack, hole, you know, to the restaurant or to the home. I think there's everyone need to work together on this. It's not just the inspector, you know, going out to inspect. Resident, tenant, landlord working together. If you have food left over, you know, put in the refrigerator, throw away, and put in trash. Don't leave it out, you know, on the stove, or trash that you put there, cover it. You know, those are some of the things that it's a simple things that everyone can can be part of the solution. You know, making sure that those tenants, those landlords are not taken care of, you know, and you go inspect and you find them. But there are those who take care, but also you have a tenant that live there, that left food on the stove not covered, allow this rat to multiply itself in the unit as well. So those are some of the things that we can work together and find solutions to this. I think that, wouldn't you agree that more populations also increase, provide more rat as well? Is that fair to say?
Yes, I mean, I think that's absolutely true. Greater populations obviously lead to greater trash, as you mentioned, and shifting demographics lead to trash in places that it may not have always been, at least in the quantities that it was before. And so that's just something I think we need to keep an eye on, but I think it's also something, as you mentioned, to remind the residents to keep an eye on. I know that sometimes I'm not the best about making sure that the lid on my trash can is as secured as it should be, or my kids decided to throw an extra bag in there and the lid doesn't go down. That's a problem, because that means that you're providing access to that trash to a rodent, and you know, it could be raccoons, it could be squirrels, it could be skunks, it could be rats, and I think we all have to kind of work together to try and make sure that we're taking all the appropriate steps. And I think I think the subcommittee and the council has come up with a good suggestion to give out a reminder to everybody to be mindful of all those little steps that would kind of maybe cut things off at the source.
I also concur with Councillor Elliott too, is that, you know, looking at the number of health inspectors that we have, probably not enough to help, you know, in these situations as well, because they not only inspect the restaurants and grocery stores and those establishments, but also they have to inspect multi-unit home. And it sounds like our inspection, the annual inspection that we've done, we are not keep up to pace on that because either COVID and or the lack of staffing. Is that fair to say, Mr. Slago?
Well, you put me on the spot, Councillor. The answer is that we, like every other municipality, have to live within a budget. And, you know, if you said to me or lots of other departments, do we need more staff? Could we use more staff? Absolutely. You know, could we use more police officers? Absolutely. Could we use more firefighters? Yes, definitely. Could we use more health inspectors? Absolutely.
But this is also a quality of life for the neighborhood as well, right? You want to have clean home, you know, safe street and all the other, but also in the home too, so that to avoid this infestation, you know, and proper timely inspection probably needed. So that's just my thought. Thank you.
Councilor Marcia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was wondering if we could continue on the thought process of what Mrs. Momblo said and try to formalize some sort of a letter to go to UMass Lowell when college starts up again. Could you please notify your students when you give the orientation or the paperwork with the rules on it to make them aware that if they don't, follow the rules and keep it clean, that there could be an infestation of rats as what we've seen before. Please alert your students living in the immediate area of Pawtucketville to please be courteous when disposing trash and do it in a timely manner. There's a letter that could be put together. So I'd like to make that in the form of a motion, because I think that is just as important, and it will be a big plus to help. Maybe that might not be the problem, but then again, it could be, so I'm not gonna take any chances. I think a letter to the university stating what I just said, if we could have some official do that.
I would second Councilor Mercier.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott?
Took the words right out of my mouth, Council Mercy, when Ms. Momblo came up, and just a simple notification. We did that years ago when there were a lot of parties over in that area, and it was a problem. We reached out to the university and worked with the university police, and it has gotten better. I think somewhat of a similar situation. We have to partner with the university to let them know. I don't know how much. At least the students will know. They got to do something about it, but it's really the landlords. Can I ask, what number was that on Drake Street, Nancy, with the garage door? Because I have received that. I've received that before from other individuals. 1 Drake Street. It's on White Street. It's been a problem for a while, right? We know who that one is. I know I've sent that to you or your staff, so. But I think that makes all the sense in the world to work with the university. I don't know if they have any, influence on the students, but we certainly can reach out, and we need to partner, because it's a health hazard, as Council Mercier said, to their students who are living there. So that was the first thing. And I also think that we can make the argument that as a result of the impact of COVID-19, that this would be an eligible expense to have another building inspector. I hope Connor Baldwin is watching, but I mean, this is, we're getting money, and this is a need, and this has been a direct effect of the coronavirus. As you mentioned, more people at home, there's more trash. So maybe we can make that argument, even if it's on a temporary basis. So I'll actually bring that motion in at the next meeting, unless the subcommittee wants to. But either way, I think that we should look at hiring, even if it's temporary, 4 or 5 weeks or longer, till we make an impact in this neighborhood. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
You got it. Sorry, Mr. Farr, I know you had your hand up earlier. You want to say a couple of words? Go right ahead.
I just wanted to comment on Mr. O'Byrne's statement. I was there actually about a year ago this time. We walked the neighborhood with some of his fellow neighbors, and they were doing all the right things. Their yards were clean. They had the rat boxes out, and we did notice some of the abutting properties where they were absentee landlords, and they're we need to address those properties just to stay on top of it. To Mrs. Montblow's comment about landlords coming in and just mowing the grass, that is another big harbor of rats, rabbits, things of that nature. So I will have my staff, make sure that we don't have any overgrown lawns and things of that nature, because that attributes to it as well. It's a nesting spot for them. So that's all I need to say right now.
Great. Now, just quickly before we get out of here, we need an update on how many of the multifamily homes have the requirement now, right, of contact name and contact number. So I would imagine if somebody's getting 4 or 5, 6, 10 phone calls about their property, they're going to get it taken care of. And probably take some weight off of, of you if we're getting the phone calls instead, right? But, you know, I know it was passed probably almost a year ago, and if we can get that done, and I don't know if there's a fine that's in place if it's not put on the property. I think we had a discussion about that. It has to be visible for people to be able to see it. And again, whether it's a super or the actual owner of the property, obviously, I think that would help. So, yes, Mr. Fuller?
One other statement, with the hot real estate market, we've seen an uptick on sales of properties. And with that, the fire department is tasked to go in and do their SDI inspections. And they've been very vocal to my department when they see something that doesn't pass the sniff test. So we've actually been able to get names of people that haven't previously been registered with the city or have illegal units in their basement. So we're trying to, we're trying to get those people that fail to register. So I can think of 3 properties off the top of my head that are in that general vicinity. So, it's a good step forward, and hopefully that practice will continue with the fire department, not just signing off when they see something that they're there to sign off on smoke detectors, but they also have our eyes in mind when they look at it, so they bring it to our attention, which is a very positive thing.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Noon?
Mr. Chairman,
Thing, hopefully, something in the near future can be done to eradicate altogether, right? So, thank you for coming down tonight and, speaking on it. I'm sure it helped very much, and
Have a roll call on the motion.
we will, yep, yeah. And then from, Eric and Dave coming down as well. So, Mr. Clerk, do you want to do a roll call on Councilor Mercier's motion, please?
Chairman Rourke.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Noon.
yes.
3 yeas.
Great. Another excellent idea to contact the university and get it out to the students that don't live on campus. And again, every little bit helps. So that being said, we can revisit this, in another couple of months as well. We get an update to see how it's going. And with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you very much.